Please be seated for the sermon. Brothers and sisters, today's Gospel reading describes Jesus walking along the Sea of Galilee, otherwise known as the Sea of Tiberias, otherwise known as the Lake of Galilee or Tiberias. As he's walking along the shore of the lake, he comes across a couple of fishermen, Simon and Andrew. They were brothers. And they were casting their net into the sea. He calls out to them and says, "Come and follow me, and I will make you fishermen of people." And Simon and Andrew immediately leave the net and the boat and followed Jesus, just like that. A little bit further down, he finds another two brothers, also fishermen, Iakovos, translated into English as James, and Ioannis, John, the sons of Zebedee. This time, the father was with them, Zebedee, the father, and he's in the boat with them. And Jesus also calls them. And they just leave the boat and leave their dad exactly where he was and follow Jesus. You can imagine the reaction or the blank look on Zebedee's face when this would have happened. And the passage goes on to explain that he travelled around Galilee, all the different towns and villages, and preached in their synagogues, proclaiming the gospel of the kingdom and healing every illness and infirmity. Now, there's a lot of things we could talk about from this passage, but one thing that is something I'd like to talk about today is this act of invitation. The invitation, the calling. Here we were, two groups of fishermen doing their work, trying to make the income that would feed themselves and their families. And someone comes along, they don't even know his name, and says, "Come and follow me." Now we might think, and picture ourselves and try and empathise here and say, well, maybe very simply they heard him say, "Come follow me," and they were curious as to what this was all about. And that's why they followed him and would have subsequently found out so much. And that is probably a good answer, explaining how quickly and spontaneously they just followed him. Hold on to that, because that's not a bad thing. Arguably, some other commentators say that, especially in the case of James and John, they were already disciples of St. John the Baptist. And They were already in that realm, that spiritual realm. They weren't foreign to a spiritual calling. And there was some preparation in their spiritual life, such that when Jesus comes along, they much more readily followed him. In both those cases, they could probably overlap. But in both those cases, we see an abandoning of their previous life. And this is important, because we now have to put ourselves in their shoes, or sandals, as the case may be, and think, when we are called, when we get the invitation, and we'll talk about what forms this invitation may take in just a moment, but when we are called, when we get a message, when we are inspired, what example do they give us? So let's go to the invitation. In this case, what we have is from a distance, Jesus comes up to them, doesn't even know their names, they don't know his name, and he invites them from a distance, and they follow him. Then, in other examples in the Bible, we have more personal invitations, where Jesus goes even closer and addresses the person by name. And we remember the example of Nathanael, where Jesus was more personable and more personal in his knowledge of that person. It wasn't a general invitation, hey, come and follow me. It was, I know you. In another example of Apostle Paul, in his case, it's more than personal, because Paul was a persecutor of Christians. He was arresting them, putting them on trial, and even executing Christians. He was an enemy of Christ, so it was personal. But Jesus appears to him in a vision out of nowhere on the road to Damascus, famous road to Damascus, and blinds him with a flash of lightning. And Apostle Paul didn't know what hit him. And in the case of Paul, this is an example of an invitation where occasionally through history and in life, you might get a big spiritual experience that turns you. But in most cases, that's not the case. For all of us, we haven't got a big shaking, some supernatural experience, some transcendent something or other, a vision perhaps, although we've heard of so many. For most of us, we're like Simon and Andrew. We're in their boat, where we get a bit of an invitation, a bit of a calling, a bit of a message, perhaps at church, perhaps by reading something, perhaps by coming across any other format of the message, whether that's online or any other public sharing of the message. And we are attracted, we are pulled, we are taken. Oh, that seems to be a good message. Let me listen more. Let me follow a bit and see what will happen. We're in the same boat as Simon and Andrew. A lot of us are challenged sometimes by our atheist fellow citizens who say, well, have you seen a vision, or have you had some supernatural experience? Well, why on earth are you going to church if you haven't had such a miraculous experience? And they challenge our faith. And our answer is, once again, quantitatively speaking, most of the people who are close to God don't expect and don't depend on such an experience. But we are drawn, no doubt, we are drawn to the message, and this should be our answer to them, We are drawn to the principles that Jesus Christ teaches because we put some of them into practice and we suddenly discover that our life improves and our life has more meaning and our life has more purpose and our life has direction. And we are not swayed by the storms of this life, whichever they may be. Which brings us to the next format of invitation, the troubles of life. Illness, disappointment, disaster, catastrophe, pain. All these things, all these troubles of life, which we often dismiss as a bad thing, we as Christians should always turn them upside down and see how we can use the pain and trouble and disappointment of life as a vehicle for greater things, as a vehicle for our coming closer and following this source we call the Spirit. So, brothers and sisters and dear friends, this invitation may take various forms, but either way we should be open to the invitation. And at the very least, just like the example given to us by Simon and Andrew, as well as James and John, follow and see, follow and test, follow and discover, because you might find that salvation comes from this simple magnetic attraction to the Spirit. Amen. Αδελφοί, σας ευχαριστούμε για την υπομονή σας ως προς την κατάσταση που επερχόμαστε αυτόν τον καιρό. Ξέρω ότι πιο πολύ θα θέλατε να είσαστε στην Εκκλησία και ότι ο αριθμός των 50 δεν είναι αρκετός για μας, αλλά η κυβέρνηση έχει δώσει άδεια από την 1η Ιουλίου να έχουμε ένα άτομο για κάθε 4 τετραγωνικά μέτρα. Οπότε για μας εδώ αυτό σημαίνει περίπου 90 άτομα από την 1η Ιουλίου και θα ήθελα λίγο όλοι μας να δείξουμε λίγη υπομονή. Ξέρουμε και ποθούμε και είναι ωραίο που ακούω ότι ποθείτε όλοι να είσαστε στην Εκκλησία. Τι ωραίο πράγμα και τι ωραίο πρόβλημα να έχουμε, να θέλει τόσος κόσμος να έρθει στην Εκκλησία. Όμως, κάντε λίγη υπομονή, δώστε έτσι ένα σεβασμό προς τους επιτρόπους και στο προσωπικό της Εκκλησίας, οι οποίοι προσπαθούν να ελέγξουν την κατάσταση και με το καλό θα έρθει η ώρα πολύ σύντομα που όλοι θα είμαστε μαζί. Brothers and sisters, the point I've just made in Greek is that, first of all, I thank you for your patience as we get through the easing of restrictions with coronavirus. From the 1st of July, we will be able to have about 90 people in our church because the regulation will be 1 person per 4 square meters. So that is good news. In the meantime, we know that every Sunday more than 90 people, more than 50, more than 90 are wanting to come to church and are being left out or missing out. So please be patient. Another few weeks after the 1st of July, perhaps another month after that, we should get back to normal if we don't get a second wave. So please bear with us. Don't abuse the staff, don't abuse the committee members at the doors. Please be nice. We've gone through so much already, and now that we're at the tail end of things, let's just keep taking it easy as we have so far. Youth Fellowship, this Tuesday, we will be going to Marrickville Church, St. Nicholas Church, where Bishop Emilianos of Meloi will be speaking about the troubles and anxiety of life. And that's tied in with what I've just talked about, how we can use something like anxiety, which we might have in life, and how to turn that around and how to make it a vehicle for our progress, spiritual progress. Our next live stream service is next Sunday. I thank you all for contributing in terms of subscribing to our YouTube channel. We have reached 1,000 finally, and thank you all for signing up, and I won't bug you with that again. Please come up the sides for the Antidoro, and we'll see you next Sunday. Με το καλό.